I'm still stuck on this. I'm going through these 200 apparent acts of public or private outreach, pressure, or condemnation targeting either state legislators or state and local election administrators to overturn state election results. This included at least 68 meetings, attempted or connected phone calls or text messages, each aimed at one or more state or local officials. 18 instances of prominent public remarks with language targeting one or more such officials. It goes on and on. How, after this, Carol, can Trump, his team, Fox News, conservative media possibly blow off the big lie like it's just some liberal tagline? The facts are here.
You know, this is part of why the first tip of the iceberg, Steph, that we saw of the DOJ's investigation of Donald Trump's orbit related to January 6th was focused on the fake elector scheme. You know, the president and his aides' use of the office to pressure, bully, threaten all sorts of states, and also, honestly, to seduce and woo some state legislature leaders. Remember his invites to the Pennsylvania legislative leaders and Wisconsin leaders, swing states he needed, inviting them in to talk a little bit about, you know, election fraud and electors in general. The way Rudy Giuliani operated, the way Mark Meadows was keeping tabs on this effort. It's part of why the first subpoenas that we saw traces of that had to do with Trump's orbit had to do with the electors scheme. That was earlier this year and late in the fall. And what is the first thing that Special Counsel Jack Smith asks for, Steph, when he is 4 days in office after being appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland? The first thing he asks for are all of these different swing state officials, county election officials, all of their potential communications with about 24 different lawyers, mostly for Donald Trump, who were acting on his behalf in this effort to try to change the results in key states.
The fake elector scheme. You go to page 268, Katie, and you've got Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy, who had Trump's ear, regularly making recommendations to Trump's inner circle on how to further this elector scheme. Will there not be consequences for these people? You and I hear every day about the liberal media. This is a man who runs a news organization advising the former president on a scheme to overturn the election.
Well, I think first, I want to address your question, but going back, this isn't the first time in the report we see all sorts of folks in sort of further right-leaning media being really embedded in the Trump machine, the larger, broader Trump machine, including a lot of hosts on Fox News, to your point, Chris Ruddy at Newsmax, really acting as advisors, a second tier of advisors to the president. So that is an unusual, I think, amount of closeness between the media and a president, but that is certainly, I will say that only as my opinion. But then to your point, of course, you know, this sort of constant barrage of different ways to overturn the election and the fake elector scheme, this is going to be something that the U.S. Attorney's Office has already been hard at work trying to discern, that Jack Smith is going to continue to try to discern which parts of this are rise to federal crime, meaning some sort of federal statute was violated, versus what we're seeing, for example, in a state like Georgia, where there's an ongoing investigation there that certainly looks at the way that election officials and election procedures are being may have been manipulated in that state. And so, yes, you have to wonder whether or not there will be accountability, but that's why people are so thoroughly looking at this issue. But I think that one of the interesting things about the report, and it sort of tangentially gets at this, is that the report is very good at highlighting things that it thinks are very wrong, even if it does not think that it can criminally refer them per se. So I think that the fake elector scheme is a very fascinating example of this. They outline it. They think that something very dreadful, something wrong, something possibly criminal has happened, but they're not making criminal referrals on any of the people, for the most part, involved in that scheme other than John Eastman. And they also continue to talk about it as simply something that's wrong. And this is a congressional report, something that there's been debate. Is this something that Congress can address with things like the Electoral Count Act?